Is that looking much? Yeah, there we go. That's much better. There you go.
Cool, thanks.
If any more problems, remember Nick lives closer than I do.
Yeah, well, Andy's here too. He was
Ah,
always
perfect. Yeah, Andy.
my next.
Go to. There you go. Gotcha.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Evening. Hey, good evening. How we doing, Mike? Doing. Well, when this dark weather gets here, it kind of throws a little shade sometimes over the energy.
Seasonal affective disorder,
Yeah, a little bit.
especially for us old timers, you know.
Hasn't been too bad.
If we had an indoor recreation facility, it'd be much better.
That would change it up, yeah.
Have tanning booths in there and
Yeah.
I was looking at those December 9th minutes. Nice stuff.
a better job.
The Minuteman.
Still at the bank?
I moved departments.
That's right. Are you counting the money now?
I am I'm building business loans.
Building business loan. So the next step is to be a loan officer.
We shall see. But it's going well. It's definitely drinking out of a fire hose.
When did you start that?
Transition like late October, November. So
What is building business loans?
So pretty much working with the loan officer start to finish on like everything they need. I'm not doing any like underwriting, but it's a lot of just doc prep. Kind of where kind of you need to start, but I enjoy it. I like reading all the credit approval memos, like, hey, this is what we're doing this for. This is spread, all the background on it, but and I'm trying to be in like every day of the week, just to,
Sure. Are you still at that location?
still at the credit union, so. But
Which credit union is that?
Vermont Federal. So, but yeah, it's exciting time to join. It was kind of in like disarray during like COVID. Like there was
Sure.
a bunch of like turnover. Now the team it was at like 4 people, and now it's at like, I'm the 12th member of the team. And then they moved out over our entire cannabis department over to the services. So that's on. But
Cannabis department?
yep, so we house probably about 80% of the state's marijuana accounts,
Mm-hmm.
so. Yeah, got a lot in fees coming in, which is fun, and team of 3, which is pretty cool.
Do you work with like one? Well, officer in
Um,
particular, or?
Depends, like December was crazy because I didn't know really what I was like doing quite yet. But we had a lot of people come towards the end of the year, to like get stuff in before like the next tax year, if that makes sense, so. But yeah, some can like come to fruition, like I'm working on one now I haven't heard back from in like a week and a half. So it's like, kind of sometimes stop and go, but then you can work on the stuff that you need to kind of get organized. How are you?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, happy new year.
Happy New Year. We're still in the statute of limitations to say Happy New Year.
That's right, yeah.
End of January.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Hope you had a good New Year's
I think
holiday.
it's great. It's low key. Anytime like holidays are drama free, I'm happy.
That's great. I'm interested in falling on both Wednesdays.
Yeah.
I never heard the statute of limitations being applied to that.
It's great.
Wilma, I've got a niece that works as a loan officer for Barclays Bank on Wall Street.
Nice.
And I said, what kind of loans are you doing? She
Yeah.
said, oh, strictly, our whole department does nothing but mortgage-backed securities.
Yeah,
I said, I thought we stopped doing those
Yeah.
because of
Yeah.
the crash in
Yeah.
2007.
yeah.
She said, oh, no, they're selling like hotcakes.
Wow.
Yeah,
And people wonder why the real estate market is going crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, my partner. They live there, so. Yeah, we left Saturday. so fine.
Well, in drove, like that's one of the Phillies.
Yeah.
Adam, did you ever speak to the woman?
No, so I had a meeting set up
Get there at 11.
at Special Olympics.
That's not.
Yeah, had a meeting set up with her, I think it was like the 21st or something. She had to bump it back, so we're rescheduling. But I reached out to her after the New Year. She hasn't responded back.
Adam, it's nice to meet you in person.
I know, yeah.
Carolyn.
Yep.
I sent Silken a PDF of the slides today. Is
Okay.
it still okay if we get those up on there?
Yeah,
Cool, thank you.
Doing a better job. Stuff on this year. That's kind of translate for December.
Again, ignore the frantic traffic emails. I'm just like,
You just sent the one and you weren't even late, so.
we're not late, that's great. Ugh. Are we waiting for some more people, I assume?
Let's see here, 1, 2, we actually,
Alistair said he was coming.
he did.
Yeah, Cindy's coming too.
Yeah, so we will have momentarily.
Sweet.
Left for once to give myself plenty of time to get here. Usually I'm like, oh, I'm only 10 minutes away. And then you run into traffic.
Then you get on Dorset
Yeah,
Street.
exactly.
Yeah.
I lived 20 minutes away and it took me 45 to get here. And I was like,
That's really good.
I have to. sit
Brother,
over
sit
there.
over here so you can.
Yeah. I'm usually the first, so
Well, you certainly were the
feels
last
awkward
meeting.
having everyone here. Like, bye.
I don't even, no.
It's like a fancy PDF viewer.
You need an account for that.
Yeah, 'cause it's like,
Yeah.
they only give you so many tools for free.
You know.
How's Alistair?
Subscription to use, like,
Yeah.
calculate area tool.
Yeah.
I have it written down on my desk. of course.
We'll wait until 5:30 just to make sure.
Are we sure it's not there?
The time we start a little late.
I mean, now I'm like, well, it's some variation of like one exclamation point off or something. Yeah, I have like 7 passwords. Change over.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you
Good.
change those ones, yeah. Yeah. And now, even like the login just for the computer is telling me like. you have one.
So you know, the computer, the screen says 5:30, our clock says 5:29.
One says 5:30.
Yeah. You wanna roll at 5:30?
Yeah.
We've got a quorum here. Before we start, we have a guest or a new face. Would you
Yes.
care to introduce?
Hi everyone, my name is Carolyn Lawrence. I'm a recreation planner with the consultant firm CRO Planning and Design, and we are working with the city, with you guys and the Open Space Commission to come up with 2 separate master plans. So I'm gonna run through a little bit of our project structure and like initial tasks with y'all tonight, specifically for this group, not Open Space.
Caroline or Carolyn?
Carolyn, thanks for
Carolyn.
asking.
Wyatt,
Yeah.
okay, thank you. Is there anybody else in the room who's not familiar with somebody else in the room? Because occasionally we don't have quorums and it's been a while.
Yeah,
Silken,
I'll
maybe you could
reintroduce myself.
reintroduce
course.
yourself to the group.
I'm Silken Kirschner. I work over at the DPW building and I am the project manager of open spaces and transportation. And I'm kind of the staff member who is helping out with CRO's master planning. So we did a similar presentation to the NRCC last week and I'm excited to see the Rec and Park side of thing this week. Hear that into the discussion. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Silken. Anybody else need to be introduced to a strange face? Are we all good?
I think it'd be helpful if we all went around and just kind of said
We
the
can do
committee
that.
member names for
Sure, why don't
Carolyn's sake. Thank you.
And you'll remember everybody's name.
I
right?
will.
Let's start with the solitary gentleman.
I've been singled out. I'm Alistair Hayes. I'm part of the Parks and Rec Committee.
Nice.
Nice to meet you.
I'm Adam Math, Director of Recreation and Parks.
And I'm Cindy Freeman, part of the committee as well.
Mike Simoneau, part of the committee.
And the chairman, Leo Bisson on the committee.
Will Sudbay on the committee.
Brendan Disger, also on the committee.
Laurie Smith, City Council.
And Lori saw a very similar presentation last week.
Yes, I
so
did.
Sorry.
Yeah, Lori shared a little bit about it, but not the ending. So we'll call the meeting to order. I guess that's maybe understood already. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda before we get started? Okay, hearing none. Any comments from the public? I don't see any one other than our committee members here at the moment, so I guess we're good with the public. December meeting minutes. Have folks had a chance to take a look at them? Are there any thoughts or comments on those minutes?
Two comments. One, Brian, and I don't remember his last name, was here.
Doyle.
Doyle. And with Lori, you're listed as a member of the public. Is it that you're a member of the public?
He's our
ex officio,
liaison.
Or
I'm
council, like-
liaison, I don't know.
Council
I am a
liaison.
member of the
Oh,
public.
yeah, you're multiple, so I didn't know what so it was just that was more a question of like, is that what's the best way to list Lori?
It's usually listed as liaison, but it doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Okay, everybody can spell liaison without tripping over it here?
No.
Be a tough one every now and then.
Liaison.
Oh my God.
That's a word.
Okay. All right, any other thoughts on the meeting minutes? I guess, again, we just have to accept them. We don't necessarily have to approve them. So I'll move we accept.
Second.
Everybody?
Aye.
Bye.
Okay, all right, so moving along here. Our director's update.
Keep it kind of short and quick. Spark the Park at Veterans Park is finished. That ran December 5th through January 6th, I want to say. Have a handful of new programs starting up. Basketball started with games, not this past Saturday, but the Saturday before. Coming up, we have a Valentine's Day dance in February. We're also working with the library on a Black History Month, like array of events. We'll have like 6 different things going on with the library on that. And then the next kind of big thing as well is our community dinner on February 21st.
Any way of determining the level of traffic at your light show? Over
I
the
mean,
holidays?
we had numbers from, we did 2 different days up there where we were doing hot chocolate and like s'mores. We have numbers on that. Otherwise, we don't have like a total,
Mhm.
but it definitely got expanded
Yeah,
this year as far as the lights.
that's a great job.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah, I just wanna
impressive.
second the great job of the light show. It was probably comparable to Shelburne Museum, free of charge, so.
Shelburne was a little,
Yeah, put that in.
Put that in the notes, yeah.
Great job. I actually went, I went a few times and
Yeah.
I had other friends tell me what a tremendous job. Improvement from
Yeah.
even last
Yeah,
year,
it's
so
been quite a bit.
well done.
okay, anything else, Adam, that you would like to share?
No.
Okay. All right, that leads us into the master plan presentation and discussion. And who will start out? Do we need a little history lesson, or we're gonna jump right into?
I'll give one quick little aside. I have to duck out a little before 6:30 because we have a council meeting.
Yes.
Back to back. So
Okay,
I'll be ducking out before you're done.
Yeah, I can give a little bit of history about the master planning concept. So we need both a open space master plan and a rec and park master plan. And Adam and I, we started working on this mid last year sometime. And we discovered that the way we think about both of these plans is as part of a Venn diagram in which active recreation is one end and conservation is the other, and passive recreation is that middle space in the Venn diagram. And so a lot of this back end kind of research of the conversation, it's hard to limit and only talk about rec and parks and only open spaces. So we're kind of using the approach of do both at the same time, but come out with 2 separate plans in the end to maximize the feedback we're able to get from our residents. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course.
What was the purpose behind the 2 separate plans? Or
Well,
the need for the 2 separate plans?
yeah, so both have very different goals in terms of how do we keep up with our parks and how do we keep developing and keep offering these types of recreation, but from a conservation side, like what's the best method of stewardship of the land? How can we manage invasive species? It's really a like no touch approach, totally let nature take over. And then you see that kind of overlap when you see a path through a natural area. And so a lot of these areas are hard to say whether it's one or the other concretely in either category. And so this is a lot of like listening of what we need, and then also the product that we create with these master plans will get into a gap analysis of where in the city we're lacking to meet that some type of recreation space within a quarter mile of every residence.
That's helpful.
And I'll let Carolyn take the floor.
Hey, thank you all so much for having me tonight. It is I'm just excited about this project. I think it's super cool. I live in Burlington proper, but I'm like super into Sobu, so it's exciting. It's exciting to be working with you all on this. So as I mentioned before, last week, my colleague Drew and I gave a very similar presentation to the Open Space Commission. Sorry, I always conflict with you. Committee, thank you. And I'm gonna give you guys a really similar one just so we can all be on the same page. But like the highest level thing about this is that there will be 2 different plans, and like this group will have ownership over the parks or rec and parks plan, and open spaces will have control over the open space plan. So thank you. A quick agenda for tonight. We're just gonna fly through some welcome and introductions, which we already did a lot of, but I'm gonna ask y'all a fun little question. Then we'll dive into some project management and onboarding logistics, followed by a project work planning timeline. And we'll talk a little bit about like the preliminary tasks that we're gonna dive into, and then into next steps. Does everybody feel good about that for tonight? Great. Thank you for being my slide person.
And Adam did send out a copy of this some time ago. Everybody on the committee should have received it, but if for some reason you haven't downloaded it and you want to relocate it, then you could always have it sent back out.
So thank you, Adam, for distributing these slides. Sweet, so thank you all again for sharing your names and how you are involved with this committee. But I am just curious if we could go around the horn and just like a quick little 10-second quip of what's one thing that gets you excited about parks and open space in South Burlington? Alistair, do you wanna kick things off?
Yeah, I'll kick off. I think for me, it's about the amount of. I think for me, it's about the kids' activities and being able to allow. I've got a little kid who's 10, who's able to like go and play with soccer, go and do her outdoor activities, do walks in the park, take her out and do things. I think for me, it's a lot about the active side more than anything else. But I think it's really important that it's accessible for everyone.
Thank you.
You Okay, well, it was a lot of the activities, but now my children are older. So I would say I love walking the paths. I really love Overlook Park, the paths there. I think they're really wonderful. And just being out in nature, that's really nice to do. And just being on the bike path as well, walking. So I'm not biking too much, but I would love to have the bike paths connected. I think that would be really lovely.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I'm just writing down literally
Yeah.
everything that y'all are saying, so I'm
Yeah.
listening.
So obviously lots of great benefits, health, emotional, that come from parks and open spaces. For me though, I tend to look at it through an equity lens, and there's a great deal of disparity in our society, income inequality, stuff like that. And parks are one place where something exciting and virtuous can be made available to the entirety of society, most of the time at no cost. So equity is probably the word to summarize.
Great, I love it.
Well, for me, it's the ready accessibility of someplace to get exercise and to have fun doing it in an atmosphere that is conducive to wanting to do those things.
Awesome. Different options across the city. I think it's wonderful to see them being engaged not just by South Burlington residents, but residents across Vermont and really wherever. So, and each one kind of has a different, unique offering, I would say, but yeah.
I agree with everything everybody else said, but on top of this, I want to sort of talk about possibility. And I also think South Burlington is very much a community in transition. And with lots of pulls and pressures and impressions on what the future should look like. And if we don't stop and be planful about parks, open space, and all of these things, that things can either happen or not happen. So I'm excited about the opportunity to affirmatively think about the future for our community amidst all the pressures of the changing demographics, development, all of those different things.
Thank you.
Community access, stewardship, and retaining the values of Vermont.
Great, thank you for answering that question twice. Awesome.
Different each time.
Thank you all. It's really helpful for me to know like what gets you out of bed in the morning. And I mean, obviously you're on this committee, so you care about this stuff. It's just fun to hear it from the horse's mouth. Cool, diving into project management and onboarding. Also a fun little tidbit is that like Drew is my boss and the founder of this company, and he helped South Burlington with their last like parks master planning phase. I don't even remember what the project was called, but all these photos in the presentation are from a summer public meeting that he helped run for the last like parks planning thing you guys did. And like apparently there was a hot air balloon there. So that was,
Oh, remember it well. Maggie Lugers was our director at the time, and they were taking people up for little rides.
so cool.
in the balloon. Yeah.
Sounds like the most fun public meeting of all time. So speaking of Drew, so we just like to have like the more communication, the better. So if you guys ever have a question or a comment or just like need to reach us, like please contact both him and me, and our emails are up there on the screen. And then we're also forming, well, Silicon is forming a project advisory group, and that I'm hoping to have a representative from this group on that group. And we don't have to determine that tonight, but
This group has chosen their.
oh, okay, awesome. Y'all are way ahead of me. I'm so happy about it. Who will be representing on the advisory group?
Yeah, Mike, you had mentioned Brett.
Well, at one point in time, we were going to have 3 people share the responsibility. Aaron's not here, but Alistair and Brett are here. They were 2 of the 3 that were going to do that. And I don't know that we designated one to, you know, be more prominent than the other in that role. Might have to do with their availability, their work schedule, stuff like that. But they're both very enthusiastic about the opportunity to participate and engage in the process.
Great, awesome. Thank you guys. I really appreciate your time or additional time to be on that group. Awesome, great.
Sure you can make 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that if you're fine with that. From a staffing level, like we're fine if there's 2 representatives on.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. Great, awesome. Thank you guys. Great. Yes. Okay, I already mentioned this, but I just want to be like super clear that like there are going to be 2 different plans, and like each group is going to have the authority over one of them. So yeah.
So if there are differences of opinion and philosophy, and then there are 2 separate plans, how will we be able to address them?
Well, I think that the hope between this whole structure of doing both of the plans together was like purposefully to like try to find alignment between the 2 groups, because I've like been made aware that there's been some tensions between the 2 groups over the last couple of years. So our hope is that by working with like both groups separately through these committee meetings, but also together as part of the advisory group, that we should be able to find some common ground to stand on. Yeah, and I mean, it will be
Yeah.
like this is an annual, like a long, 12 to 18 month project, so we'll have some time to figure it out. Yeah. Or figure out differences.
I just had to bring it, because it has come up, like, and I wanted to be explicit.
Yeah,
How do we deal with conflict, which is fine.
yeah, that's something that we're very prepared for.
And I think one thing to note on that is as we do more of the GIS mapping and things of that sort, I think it'll help paint a picture in terms of what is needed in pockets of different neighborhoods. And so it'll emphasize, okay, they do have a open space that is very natural already. They need a park where little kids can go and play or play soccer. And I think that'll help like paint that story of South Burlington of what is needed and where. So hopefully there is no more conflict.
But I don't think it's necessarily as acrimonious as.
Yeah, no, yeah, conflict is a strong word for the,
Yeah.
Do we know where the kids are playing right now? Like if we create these playgrounds, will they actually use them? I mean, I'm just curious, that should be in the planning too, is to know exactly how the kids are using what is already available. You know, because a lot of times we're such a structured society that I think that a lot of times, you know, when there's the group activities, that's where kids go. They go to the track and field, they go to soccer, they go to, and then they might be exhausted at that point to do like, you know, so I it just would be very interesting because part of I love the idea of the 1/4 mile, in sort of, but then there's another part of me that's thinking, well, we're already having problems taking care of our parks. That to add more to that mix, will we then lose the ability to take care of what we have? So that's just throwing it out there, because I think that, you know, it just would be an interesting part of the study, of the master plan study.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
And that actually is like a major focus of this project, this plan, is to figure out like achievable management practices and best management practice to make sure that maintenance doesn't get away from the town or the volunteers that might help with those spaces. And also like part of this process too is like an extensive public engagement party. So we're gonna have like online surveys, we're gonna have in-person events, and just be able to collect a ton of feedback from people within the community and outside of it, so that they can share their ideas about like, yeah, my kids won't ever play here, or like they super duper wanna play there all the time. Yeah.
That seems fundamental to what Cindy's saying, is that how do you measure, and is it part of this plan to measure the current use of recreational and park facilities and the purposes for which they're being used, and then anticipate through surveys or what have you, the demand that would be generated if additional facilities or improved facilities were available.
Yeah, that's like I think a cornerstone of this project as well. Like Adam has already helped us out by sending us a bunch of the data for like the kids camps and activities that people participate in already. And again, through that public engagement process, we hope to collect like a lot of data to help us paint that picture and move forward.
And community gardens was a big thing for a lot of, we feel like we need more community gardens. That's
Curious to see that data as well.
yeah.
Is the assessment of the potential demand and potential use of an indoor recreation facility part of this?
Yeah, I think that comes back to all the data that Adam has, and yeah. Sweet, so diving into the work plan and timeline. Well, first, here's the beautiful, I'm obsessed with this project objective that Silken put together. But we always just like to check that this resonates with y'all as well. The Open Space Committee felt pretty good about this, but we just want to make sure that you guys feel good about it too. Have you guys have read this sentence before? Okay, great. So our plan is actually to structure like the final master plan, kind of like we want to structure it around all of those categories that were mentioned in the objective statement. So hopefully we'll touch on everything that feels important to the city and this community. So another quick question I have, if we could go around the horn again, is what is one outcome of this project that would make you feel like the effort was a success? Alistair, do you want to start again?
Boy. You won't get the copy right at the end here. The second semester. I think it's to have a coherent plan that actually genuinely reflects the needs of the citizens of the town. And I think I'll leave it as succinct as that.
I love it.
More funding to take care of what we have, our parks and the bike paths and the open spaces. So hopefully this will highlight the need for more funding.
So there's a lot of other studies that are being done right now. There's a big push to use more data as a foundation for decision-making. So this process, I think, will, as a part of it, be generating quite a bit of data, which can be foundational for a lot of the decisions that are going to be made, assessing the present and determining maybe what some of the future needs are going to be. But looking at it through the political lens, wanting to feel that the outcome of the process had as its foundation the participation and the engagement of a lot of people throughout the community. And I mean, it can be a challenge to figure out how to engage some, because a lot of times there's a level of apathy or a preoccupation with, you know, what's going on in everybody else's world. So, but how can you figure out a way to have the community feel that this process was one where they weren't fighted, they were encouraged, even compelled to participate, so that the outcomes reflected something that they felt they had some input for.
Awesome.
I think that the residents of the city who are paying for this endeavor need to have an increased awareness and increased use of the publicly available facilities in order for this to be considered successful.
Love it. Succinct.
I'm just having PTSD from the owl.
Did one attack you?
It did.
Was it a barred owl?
Yeah, I got swiped in Schmansky.
I'm so sorry. When they're nesting, they can be pretty aggressive.
That's right.
But I just thought I'd go there.
Batman movie,
I don't know if people remember
with the
that.
bat.
There's two different
Um,
perspectives. I'm looking at this beautiful owl and you're thinking, oh, it might attack me.
Is that the barred owl from?
I wondered why I was looking at you.
Yeah. One outcome, I think the recognition of a indoor recreation facility. And I'll leave it as that.
I want a plan that staff and council will feel represents a direction of the community that they really want to support, and that supports their needs, supports the needs of the community, and drives forward. So at least it's not something that in short order becomes credential there. And it sits there and collects those.
We had a similar statement from the Open Space Committee.
For me, it's having a plan that has a really clear vision for our envisioned future for our parks and open spaces, and a well-defined roadmap for how we get from where we are today to where we want to be, so that it's a functional document that we can use to actually get to that vision.
Thank you. Sweet. Again, this is like all so helpful for like to guide our work. So I'm so grateful for you guys being willing to share that. Diving right into project tasks to get us to this actionable plan that we're just sitting on the shelf. So this is the project kickoff. Thanks for being here. Psyched about it. And we're also beginning our existing conditions assessment. So that'll be like looking at the data that Adam has sent along about who's participating and how often and when, and like other relevant data about the park. So I was just thinking like trail counters, but I don't know if you guys have those. It's just the first thing that popped into my mind. But yeah, just to figure out like who's going where, who's excited about what, and trying to compile all that to a readable document. Then we'll dive into the public outreach phase, and we're hoping to have a minimum of 2 public meetings that are open to the public. The format that we have found works really well is like an open house style. So rather than like everybody sitting in rows and having a microphone, it's more of like we'll have like really interactive like boards around an open space, and everybody can come in, drop by for a couple minutes, or stay for the whole 2-hour period. I found that like cheese and beer and pizza works really well as incentives to get people there, you know, keep it fun and just encourage participation as much as we can. And then those poster boards that we'll have in that public meeting, we'll turn those into an online survey to ensure that the data is very similar for those who participate online versus in person. And you guys will have the opportunity to test that survey and offer your feedback once we put it together, which would be great. Yeah, and then we'll also have those hopefully like monthly advisory group meetings, and that group as a whole will have input in both the public outreach efforts for in-person and online. Yeah. After that, we'll dive into a capacity evaluation and a needs analysis. So looking at like, what are the indoor capacities of the facilities that you have, and are they super overflowed, or is nobody going there, and what do we do about that? That kind of stuff. And then after we have all of that data, then we'll take it and work it to define goals and explore some options for you guys about how to move forward. And then that'll dive into us writing a big fancy document that'll be the plans themselves for you guys to look at. Yeah. Do you guys feel good about how we have structured what this project is gonna look like?
Are you gonna, I see, okay, the category public outreach, are you gonna solicit input on how you might make your public outreach process as effective as it can be, getting back to my thinking about accessibility, political process, cause there's, we're kind of spread, there's almost like two communities, one's on Shelburne Road, the other's here on this end of town. We've got 3 grammar schools. So 2 meetings, is that enough? Would you go to 3 and have one at each of the schools so that each of those areas in the community feel, more engaged with what the process? So just in general, are you open to feedback on how the outreach is conducted, or have you?
Yeah, 100%. So I'm actually gonna be writing like a whole separate document called like public engagement plan, and then that'll be a couple page document that I'll send to you guys and the advisory group as a whole for feedback. And also we had the exact same question during the open space committee. Okay,
The only commission we have is planning commission.
okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, thank you, that's helpful. But somebody asked the same exact question, and yeah, the answer is yes. Like if the advisory group, if this group feels that like we need to have a meeting at every single elementary school, then we can figure that out, because we absolutely want to collect as much data from all the communities as possible.
And we're also able to do like webinars, online surveys, like smaller diverse events to capture a broader audience. So it's not just like who's willing to show up to these open house style ones. We're gonna do a lot of different style meetings. I know like Adam and I have chatted about potentially doing something at like the community dinners.
Meet them where they're at. I love
Exactly,
that.
meeting our constituents where they're at and trying to get as many people cast as wide a net as we possibly can. So.
Yeah, and something that's been really helpful for when we've done similar projects in other municipalities is having like the schools themselves include in their newsletter to all the parents. That's been like so helpful. So that's the hope too.
I am hoping someone from the school joins our advisory committee as well.
This is a little bit of minutia, but when you hold the meetings, if they can be in a space where Adam could have something set up for a kids thing so that families can come and their kids can be busy and the parents can actually pay attention, that could be really useful.
Yeah.
Great idea.
A lot of parents say, I can't go, I've got kids, I gotta.
So,
I'm
sorry, the one concern that I have, so South Burlington's a wonderful community. There's some groups of people who have disproportionately loud voices, and even if we create opportunities to welcome in the voice of others, how do we make sure that we're equitably listening? So that just because a small group of people says it 6 times and you get a couple of people who quietly say like, I want something different. How are we making sure that all of those pressures fit together?
Well, assuming I'm understanding your question correctly, hopefully that open house like drop-in model would be really helpful for that, because it doesn't require, like, there's not gonna be an opportunity for the vocal minority to like steal the microphone and be like, I think this, blah, blah, blah. And like, it's literally like poster boards in a room, like you can take your sticker dots and like put them where on places that you feel excited about. And I also like to think the online survey is an opportunity for those who might not wanna be like super loud in the community can share their thoughts.
Or
And
I guess the other part would be like somebody who gets like, I can't believe this is happening. Facebook group, they're having an open house. You have to go and vote on this. So like there's a small block of people, bam.
Well, that's where this advisory
Yeah.
group model comes
Yeah.
into really big handy, because we're bringing all these humans who
Yeah.
have all their different spider webs and networks together, and then they can share all these resources like amongst their one giant interconnected spider web that comes together from that advisory group. I will chat with Drew about if he has any like templatized ways to prevent the Facebook madness
Sure.
from getting crazy if
But
we're gonna stick
I'm-
with that example, but.
We'll also be working with the equity and outreach toolkit that planning and zoning has just, they're just wrapping up now, I'm just waiting for final documents from Kelsey. But that'll be a really great guiding stone in how to do this equitably.
Cool, I love that. I can't wait to read
Very
it.
exciting.
And I think
Awesome.
part of this too gets recognized, like, different people have different work schedules and like who's available at what times and where things begin. So it's just,
Yeah, I'm a big fan of QR codes, so we're gonna print flyers and hang them everywhere. Again, hoping that the online survey will be an opportunity for folks that work like nights or something to participate.
the other point I'd like to make on task 3, and I'm channeling Cindy on this one. Is the needs analysis include deferred maintenance?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Great
And
question.
also I'm wondering if test 2 will also have sometimes some questions related to what people are using. Okay, good.
And yeah, I'm excited. We have another person in our team. His name is also Brett and he rocks and he's the king of surveys. So we'll be working with him to put
Awesome.
together like a really comprehensive survey for y'all to review.
How
Yeah.
will those distributed?
Huh?
How will those be distributed?
Lots of ways. So I'm a huge fan of Front Porch Forum. We've got the Facebook groups, we got the newsletters that the town puts out. We have, I'm sure Parks and Rec has a big listserv for all the activities that y'all rock. Flyers around town, like like in the library would be great. To see out the school newsletters, like I said, social media can be really impactful if that's something that the city offers as well. Yeah. Announcements at community dinners would be amazing.
On the data thing, so there's, what's the name of the Association of Parks, the newsletter? What's the,
Vermont one or?
no, the national one, the,
NRPA.
okay, National Rec and
Recreation
Park
Park
Association. You're probably already familiar with it. You guys do this kind of stuff, but in terms of a large data resource where you might be able to, like for the existing use, okay, how does South Burlington compare? Like for a stretch of 3 or 4 years, we did review the annual publication of the NRPA, and we attempted to match up our data with what was going on there to kind of compare, where we fit, where we were falling short, where we had, more resources than other people, stuff like that. So I'm guessing that would be one resource that would be useful to kind of put our present in circumstances and even, taking a look at growth rates and seeing how other communities, might do to address their recreation and parks as well as open space needs.
Thank you. That's interesting. I didn't know that you guys had done that. Are those like analytics written down somewhere and can be?
They're pretty old by now. They're
We
probably,
we did one last year that I can send you.
That'd be really helpful. Thank
Yeah.
you.
And I know Drew is a member of those larger rec and park groups, like a statewide one and I think a regional one as well.
Mhm.
So he has a lot of connections in those groups and with those parties.
Okay.
Yes, sorry, great addition. Awesome. Do you guys have other questions about the planned tasks? Also, thanks for asking such great questions. This is our proposed project schedule. It's a little condensed just because of like holiday madness, but we're in January now in the middle of task 1, and we're hoping to have this wrapped up by January of 2026. So good little 12-month adventure that we're on together.
Yeah, the past 12 months were a little slow.
Nothing going on. Cool, I talked about this a little bit already, but this is just diving a little bit more into task 1. So just mutually developing expectations for the goals, objectives, timelines, deliverables of the project with you guys and with the Open Space Committee, not commission. And hopefully scheduling those recurring project check-in meetings with the whole advisory group. Silicon and I were talking a little bit about this last week, but like have that, we were thinking maybe monthly with the advisory group, if that feels attainable to Brett and Alistair, who would be the representatives. Cool. And we'll send out a doodle to figure out like the best time and what day for that group to meet pretty soon. I think we've already created the shared project data storage location. Yep, so thank you for contributing materials to that, staff members. Yeah, and then we're still working on the inventory of existing parks and open spaces within South Burlington and their defining characteristics, so that we're working on that document right now, as well as an inventory of the conservation and natural resources data within South Burlington, again, so for data for both plans. And then the existing conditions-based map and document that describes all identified assets and their defining features. We have another human who we're working with that is a base map queen. Her name is Janine. So she will be doing all the mapping for this project.
Janine, the mapping queen.
Janine, the mapping queen. I should get her a t-shirt that says that. That's so good.
Children's book it writes itself.
Is she a regional planning or is she at your office?
She's at her office.
So notice that it says within and around South Burlington. Is this inclusive of the recreational and some of the open spaces that are adjacent to South Burlington?
I don't know,
We're gonna look
actually.
in terms of a like distance mindset, so that quarter mile goal is achieved if you live like right on the Burlington
Yeah.
border or Colchester border, whatever, what have you. We're not going to obviously manage or have a future plan for those parcels, but it will be like, and similarly, like schools, playgrounds will be considered in that distance and availability. So like kind of yes, kind of no. Yeah.
There is that, I mean, I don't even know that it's formal. I haven't heard much about meetings and what have you, but Williston, Shelburne, I don't know if there's another community. There were 3 or 4. And there was an intent to communicate and try to figure out how the particularly open space resources, but even some of the parks where, you know, you might use resources as well as possible and to
Yeah.
understand where the communities could support one another.
I had that same thought. When you started asking that question, I had this running in my head. I thought maybe being an outsider, I was thinking of this wrong, but I'm assuming Burlington, Winooski, other towns have their own plans. Are they being looked at like side by side with the plan for ours?
Yes, for sure. I
Okay.
think South Burlington is a little unique in that our community is in that transitional period where Burlington is a little more established and other towns don't quite have as many resources as we do.
Yeah.
So we're in a little bit of a unique position in that like ours won't look exactly like those. But when I was developing the RFP to solicit services from CRO, I definitely looked at all those plans from different towns. And that kind of helped us come up with what we wanted internally. And that's how I wrote the request for proposal to start this project, was
Oh,
looking
as
at
in
those
vision?
neighboring
Oh,
plans.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we'll look at like proximity to amenities, resources and stuff like that are just beyond the border so that it's more realistic to how we actually live. Like I don't actually have a border at South Burlington to Burlington that I can't cross. So we'll consider those kinds of things as well. It just won't have a like future plan or like resource allocation or suggestions for the future kind of thing for those areas. It'll be like, these are on the map and people know they exist kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah, that's good. Because in a way, you sort of look at South Burlington as like this isolated island
Mhm.
sometimes,
Mhm.
where it's like actually like, everything all interconnects and we all use each other's resources on a regular
Right.
basis.
Yeah.
It's just that if you get too myopic,
Yeah.
and just in South Burlington, we need a quarter of a mile between each parks, and that's really important. But you know, I might drive over to one park,
Yeah.
take my kid to play soccer there, and then go somewhere else.
Yeah.
You don't want to like recreate or
And
rebuild
pretend
the
like you're
wheel.
not gonna do that and
Yeah,
come
yeah,
up with
just
this false sense of like, well, we need a park in this location and it's, well, no, you don't, like Queen City Park is right there.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Questions, y'all? Cool, and we talked a little bit about this too, but just a little bit more minutia for the public outreach plan. So Brett, who I mentioned before, is our GIS human. I'm very impressed by the skills that he possesses. So he'll work on the map with Janine for the story map, like interaction piece of it. And then for the engagement plan, we talked about those two the two open houses, as well as city hosted events, up to 8 committee and council meetings that we can attend, as well as the webinars that Silken mentioned. There's the public survey, the online survey I've been talking about, yeah. Public outreach data sets and analysis summary document. Yeah, sorry, I'm just reading this also. But yeah, I'm excited to put that together for you guys once we have all the data plugged in.
A question on the advisory group. What's the composition of that gonna look like? How many people? I just have some questions about that. That would seem to be a place where you'd be able to establish some connectivity with some stakeholder groups
Yeah, absolutely.
as a part of the outreach. So can you share anything about what that is going to look like, how it's going to be put together?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking to like these guys too to help figure out who we want on the advisory group commission committee.
So at the moment, we have a representative from Rec and Park, NRCC, the Public Art Committee. And then I am reaching out to someone from a adaptive sports group. I have someone from the school board on my group. I'd like to try to get someone from some kind of conservation group. It's been hard to find the right contact for that so far, but working on that, and then also a council member. Conversation to have with you later. So trying to cast a pretty wide net and be very inclusive in terms of, like Carolyn alluded to, all of the people on this advisory group are gonna have their own networks that can then go back and blast these things out to their own individual networks.
Any
and come together.
demographics considered in the composition of that group, socioeconomic, race, stuff like that?
Not at the moment, but open to it, yes.
I have a recommendation.
Yeah, I would love
What about a student leader?
Yeah.
Like a middle school, high school that participates in programs?
Yeah.
I love that.
Maybe even 2. We have 2 at the Rex. We're gonna have Alistair and Brett here.
Yeah, so
Um,
I'm not sure that we wanna do 2 from this committee, because I did tell NRCC that they are limited to 1 from their committee. And so if I open it up to 2 from each committee, that's immediately 6 from the 3 committees we have, plus all the other groups I have. And we're trying to keep it to about 9 people in total, so. Yeah, and
Pretty
we're-
loud and annoying. So we're pretty
Yeah.
loud and annoying.
And Mike, I think that once it's completed, the equity toolkit will really help make sure that the demographic piece gets covered, because that toolkit is gonna have
It's gonna give us a guideline of
ways
how
to get
do
in
our
touch
outreach.
with those folks that typically don't get heard. So I
So
that's,
some of the events we might do are at, there's, English is your second language groups that they have in the library. And that would be another place where we could, go have like an informal talk about what do parks and open spaces mean to them? And then also try to get them engaged with those surveys and whatnot that we are offering.
I gotta take off.
Good luck.
Thank you very much, and I love the discussion.
Nice to see you.
Likewise.
So for folks with disabilities.
Oh, okay, I just didn't notice that, so, oh, okay, it was partial. Representation. Some representation. Cause I also thought about sports groups in general that use the parks on a regular basis. There's quite a lot of community sports groups. And I'm not sure. I don't know, I'll probably tell you how much they're involved in having a voice in this. Cause I just know even from soccer, there is
Yeah, I
an
mean, I
awful
think
lot
there's
of.
like a general.
Yeah, we've, like,
So I would hate,
thought about
not hate,
that
but I don't wanna
quite
have
a
someone
bit.
from
No, I
a
don't want
soccer
people-
group.
I don't necessarily
Yeah.
want
it's more in
them
the
on the.
public, like, engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Getting
that's.
them involved in that side of it.
Absolutely. I'm not saying this person
Yeah.
should be sat on a committee with everybody else.
Yeah.
I just mean,
Make sure we're
that's like
touching
another
those
side.
topics,
Yeah,
yes.
Totally.
that I think sometimes might get, it's
Mhm.
possible that it might get overlooked of like just asking the general public as a
Yeah.
whole.
And that was part of like the selection process when we got our proposals from several consultants is I really thought CRO prioritized the public engagement the most and had the most like varied type of events, the most number of events, and like the most flexibility with like, okay, so you don't actually need 8 committee meetings, we'll take 2 of those and turn them into what have you, like what the things we're talking about now that we want more outreach in. And so them being willing to work with us and not be like, well, that is a quarter hour billable time. Like, I think that's a huge thing for a CRO's credit, is that was a big reason in the city selecting them.
That's great.
Is it possible to have like a public survey for every Recs and Parks event and just have them out or have them right out at the city, at the town office, you know?
Yeah, we'll
just-
certainly have like flyers in the library and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
and just the library because a lot of people, I think, especially, and I think that it has to be careful on how the questions are asked. Because you want people to feel comfortable responding to the question. So, and if you're driving them to a certain response too, people pick up on that, at least I pick up on it. So I just think is that something we're gonna review? Who's reviewing the public survey?
Yeah, those like not like trying to remove bias and like any like leading like questions is something we take very seriously as like a company.
Yeah,
Because like that, again, it can skew the data and we don't want that.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, like we're gonna like put together this survey with draft questions, then we'll distribute it to you all to test. And then if you have feedback about a question, like if you think it is too leading, then we'll
that's perfect.
edit it, yeah.
Okay. And then I just think the more it's out there, right, and the more it's more private, that they don't have to,
You don't have to show up, you can
Yes,
fill it
you
out
don't
from the
have to
comfort of your
always
own
show
home.
up,
Yeah, totally.
I
And that's
mean,
kind of the QR code thing Carolyn mentioned would be like you scan it on your phone, you can save that tab open and you can go fill it out when you're sitting on the couch later.
Yeah. And also a lot of people don't use the QR code, so I mean, it would be,
Right, no, yeah, but
but
we-
yeah, I
yeah.
hear you, but I mean, I went to the East-West Crossing Bridge events quite often, and they were they were fun and very good to do. But I wouldn't say that there were more than 40 or 50 people there, and so I think that it's really, because this is so crucial to our South Burlington residents, I think we really need to get as much information from them as possible. Because it's just a big part of their lives and their health and their well-being and their pocketbooks, and so.
Yeah, this is something we talked about in the open space committee meeting last week too, is just like concern about like low attendance to these open house events,
Yeah.
but that's something that we can discuss as an advisory group, just be like, okay, like what fun ideas do people have to get people in the door, or like what existing events are out there that we can go have one of these at to really boost that attendance, or do we get a hot air balloon in the summer?
Yeah,
People
that might
to the
work.
park, you know?
I'll be on it.
Yeah, so like, yeah, we'll have a meeting about that exactly,
Yeah.
like how to drum up like stoke about those events, yeah.
Okay,
But I just want to point out too, like the East-West Bridge is a great analogy, like there was all kinds of process and public opinion and ways to engage folks, then it came out, and then like there's chunks of the community like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard, why are we spending our money on it, like, and so it's the flip side of any sort of engagement process. It's hard to get everybody until something's done, but I just, that's to me is illustrative of some of the challenges in the community. No, I think it's a great idea too, but
But I hear you, it's
Yeah.
we'll get creative.
no,
Yeah. I hear we run a million events and stuff, and we have 70 thumbs, sometimes we have 20, and I'm like, So, balance.
well, I think that the events aren't so important, to be honest with you, because I think you won't have they won't be that well attended. But I think that getting those surveys out as much as possible and making it easy enough for people is really crucial, and I don't know how to do that other than being already at the events that people are going to, so. I don't know, cause I doubt personally, even if you make it really all that exciting, how many people went to the hot air balloon event?
I think a
Were
couple hundred.
Were there?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Overtime, yeah, there was, I think that
Oh.
was like a 3 or 4 hour exercise when they did it.
Yeah.
Can surveys be distributed at town meeting or in conjunction with the votes in March?
I don't
Maybe a
know
little
the
quick
laws
for the
around
survey. The survey's ready,
I'm
that's
sure there might be
quick,
like-
pretty quick turnaround.
That's March though, right? Town meeting day? Yeah, I think that we could have the survey ready by then, no problem. But that's a good idea. Are there like laws surrounding like soliciting
I would
things
have
or?
to ask about the laws surrounding
Yeah.
it portion.
Might be.
Or it could be, there's a sign outside the polling place that's within a safe distance. that says vote.
Just 5 feet beyond the rule.
Or where they sell the cupcakes and the.
Places where you get a lot of activity, obviously the schools.
Anything with food.
Supermarkets
Highly
are another
attended.
place where I, you
Yeah,
know,
they
if
do it when
there's
they take the
something
cupcake.
kicking around that, you know, because they all have their
It's like on the bottom
newsstands.
of the wrapper
Yeah.
of the cupcake. It's inside the
Yeah,
cupcake.
and that's where I come back to like QR code flyers, just like getting them up in as many
Before the cupcake.
businesses as we
Your flavor
can
choice is at
and.
the bottom of the survey.
Yeah, and I keep going back to like the school newsletters are so helpful because it's like it's one click and then you're at the survey. It's just like if we can eliminate as many barriers as to taking the survey as we can, that's
And
great.
Front Porch Forum is very, that's a wide net.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
those Front Porch Forums.
Schools, they'll like distribute it in the language,
Hmm.
in a variety of different languages too.
So it would also appear that the dog park committee got pretty good survey results. Whether or not their survey was good, they got a lot of results.
And then no results when they solicited for their members of their committee. What a dichotomy.
Like chatting down this-
500 people responded to the survey and shots, nobody
Fired.
wanted to serve on the committee.
Thank you, that's really helpful to know that they had some success with their surveys. I'm curious to know what tactics they.
We're afraid that we're gonna have to do
Facts
that.
over here.
I think we could scroll on down to the next slide.
Like the third
Closing,
one.
next steps. We can keep It is. Cool, so I already talked about all of this, but I'm gonna draft that public engagement plan, and we'll work on the like project website, story map, our GIS thing, for you guys to check out. And we'll start working on those initial base maps, and, for our next meeting, we'll review those materials together, and I'll solicit your feedback.
Do you have, so looking for, I saw earlier that you had an image of what the schedule or a map or something would look like. So are there hard dates or are those just sort of like this month, this month, this month? If there's an opportunity to define earlier rather than later what the meeting schedule might look like, that'll help people do some planning.
Great.
And if there's gonna be absenteeism, and stuff like that, that people can get volunteers to cover for them, for
Absolutely.
participations.
My like general rule of thumb is like 4 weeks notice, like advertise it, and then it's like 4 weeks away. It's like my hope, but yeah. And Sylvan and I will work together too to nail down those dates with the advisory group too, yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, no, nothing is set in stone yet. This is just kind of like general windows, just because flexibility is also important to people's schedules, but yeah.
Are all of your meetings, so we've got natural resources and parks. Are you gonna be conducting 12 separate meetings with each of those committees, or are you going to bring us together? When this thing kicked off, you had both committees in the room together, so are you going to attempt to promote some collaboration or joint sounding boards? Or are you going to keep these processes independent from one another?
I know that we'll have you guys together during the advisory group meetings, but I actually need to check with Drew about what his hope and dream is for meeting with each committee separately and how often, unless you remember the answer to that, but.
So in my mind, I see it as it depends on the purpose of that individual meeting. So if we're looking for specific feedback that we think we're gonna, so I don't wanna combine the committees and then have the two opposing viewpoints. Whereas sometimes it would be more beneficial to meet with an individual committee to discuss the certain issues at hand and get a particular kind of comments, whereas if it's more like presentation based, general comments, that kind of thing might be a combined committee meeting.
But there'll be minutes of the meetings, right?
Yes, yes.
So they'll be circulated, they'll be in the public realm. And so both of our respective committees will have an opportunity to monitor
Yeah.
maybe some of what the dialogue is.
And you would always be welcome to join the
Yes, as
MRCC
a
meeting
member
as a member of the public.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
but I think, yeah, it would just go down to like, what type of topic are we covering? What type of feedback are we hoping for? In terms of whether we want to have one big meeting or two smaller meetings.
Okay.
Thank you guys for listening to me talk for a while. There's Drew. That's my boss and his kid.
Now, who was, you had those images of Hubbard? Was Drew around when we did the Hubbard group and master plan development?
What year was that?
Is that close to 10 years? Going back? It is, it might not be 10, but somewhere between 8 and 10.
Well, Drew worked for this other firm called SE Group for a long time.
Yes, so
Yeah,
SE Group.
Drew was the one, yeah.
Yeah, Drew
Yeah.
was our point person with
Okay,
SE
all right,
back
so
in
he
the
was
day.
the one who
was it?
administrated, there was a task force for Underwood.
Mhm.
It was named at the time and then eventually became Hubbard, but okay, yeah, so some folks might be familiar with Drew.
Yeah, I think so. He knows everybody, I feel like, in Vermont. Sweet. Thank you, guys. Do you have any other like final thoughts or questions for me / Drew, who is in Florida?
I'm very excited this is getting underway.
Yeah, me too. This is such, maybe this makes me a nerd, but like, I just what gets me out of bed in the morning is like creating opportunities for people to play outside. So this is like the definition of that project. And I'm like so stoked to be working with you all to make that happen. So like my favorite thing to do in the morning is to wake up and then I ride from my house in the north end of Burlington, like all the way down the bike paths in South Burlington to get to like Blank Hedge Cafe, Bread and Butter Farm. And it's so cool that we have that connectivity and it looks like we could maybe establish even more of it through this project. Yeah,
It's a long bike ride.
Great ride.
it's like 15 miles, not bad.
Just a casual 50 miles.
When the weather's all right.
Yeah.
that's-
Yes, it's not in the winter,
Not
let's
now,
be
but-
clear. This is a summertime activity. Sweet.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
very much.
Do you guys have more things to talk
I
about? or-
don't know, Adam, go back to you for a moment. Are we still, well, we know when our next meeting is going to be. Does anyone have thoughts on what might get placed on our upcoming meetings agenda? That would be for February. Or you'll be invited to share sometime in advance, but if you do, you know, if there's anything we've been neglecting that we haven't gotten around to spending time talking about, give it some thought so that our agenda, you know, can reflect, you know.
Are there any immediate pressures? Are there any immediate pressures that we need to talk about in the next month? Nothing.
I have a question, the work plan that we worked on at the last meeting
Thank you,
was
guys.
apparently approved
So
by
nice to
city
meet all of you.
council.
Yeah. Mike presented, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
guys.
you.
Nice to
Yeah,
meet
thank you.
Thank
What-
you
What
again.
does
Thank you,
that
guys.
mean for us in terms of potential future agenda items?
Well, we ought to bring a copy of that plan to our next meeting, make it, refresh our memory of what our plan is and, you know, or even distribute it well in advance of the meeting. And it might be a catalyst for some people sharing a thought or two on something that we might want to put on the agenda.
As, do we, I haven't asked the question. Would we like to decide as a group if Brett or I should be the representative for the advisory committee, since she suggested one individual would be best.
We could put you in a hat, with your names.
Well-
Scissors, rock, paper, scissors.
I mean, we can vote, or we can,
I'll put it
out there, 'cause
we
it's a
can
good
vote, or
thing
we
to
can
decide
leave it
on
up
last
to you guys.
Well, yeah.
Well, you wanna figure it out
Because
between
then
the
you're
two of
gonna
you?
wait for
Well,
months to,
well,
yeah, we should figure it out.
Well, that's why I'm saying it, because that person will want to prepare to read as much as possible for us potentially to look at the list that we came up with as approved by council or read by council, so that we all agree and the person goes forward and says, this is what we decided. this is what we
Yeah,
wanna
the
do,
fact you
feel
might have to
comfortable."
read could make a big difference on your attitudes towards
What do you look at me?
being involved with this.
Yeah,
Who has the most time on their hands?
Who has the best reading skills, such a.
Okay, should we have them read this quickly?
Why
No,
don't you
just
two,
put
why
it
don't you
out.
two
Yeah,
talk
no,
about
it's
it? Right, guys, but I mean, I can definitely see somebody's gonna be away, there's a conflict, okay, we're gonna send
Yeah.
Mhm.
the B team.
Peter's fine. I'm okay with Peter. It's fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Alright,
You guys
we'll talk
figure it
about
out.
it, we'll talk about it, but I guess it would be good just for us to refresh our memory on what exactly. If we're being the advisory representative person, that we're reflecting the correct views of everybody.
And I think on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, reporting out progress and key components. This group and getting.
Yeah, I mean, that can just be like a running
Right.
item too. and-
yeah, I mean, like one of the, I think, check the box responsibilities ought to be, okay, what did natural resources, is there anything from their last minute meeting minutes? What was discussed so that we maintain a view of, what they're going through. So that's just some,
Yeah, I think it would be helpful, actually, when you said that earlier, I think that would be helpful to have in the, some point in a meeting, like even just in our meeting, just to understand what
Mhm.
they're up to, because I don't go and look at the minutes of the other meetings every month to see what someone else is doing in another group. Even if there's something that can be just like a tiny bit of an overview, just enough to be like, okay, now I kind of know what their agenda is clearer.
now they're down 3 members on their
Mhm.
committee. So how many are on there right now? They used to be 9 and are they now 6 or were they 7 and they're 4? Do you?
I don't know, I can look it up.
But they're a little thin. And, we're a committee of 9. But we still have some.
Well,
on
technically,
absentees.
I mean, it's basically 8.
Huh?
Is it Oliver? Never comes?
Yeah,
We're basically 8 people.
so, and Aaron even shared today.
Yeah, so right now NRCC is a group of 9, but they only have 6, so they have 3 vacant,
Right.
which could be tough.
And Ravi
Yeah.
has difficulty making some meetings too, which, worse for her because he always has some good thoughts.
Yeah. The thing that struck me on the plan timeline, there was a point in the middle, which is like finalizing goals and activities. And that would strike me as if there was to be some kind of joint meeting. I mean, it would be useful to know that. What is that? Wait, hold on. Yeah. Defining goals and exploring
the summer.
options. I mean, to me, like, once people, like, the goals will say a lot. And understanding our goals versus their goals.
Mhm.
That would seem to be the prime, get on the same page.
If I remember correctly, when we both met, both committees met, we talked about a lot of overlapping. A lot of overlapping with the open spaces and the recs and parks. So at least in that overlapping, we need to make some kind of consensus together, I think, you know, I mean, yes, it's okay to have the open spaces here and recs and parks here, but with those overlapping areas, I think that there should be more of a consensus.
I
So-
can totally get what you meant as well there. When you said. Make sure there's a good point to the meeting and it's not a talking shop, everybody can sort of get annoyed at each other because they've got difference of opinions. It's really better if it's like. If it's where you know, as a consultant, keep everything.
Well, I have a feeling that this process is going to be a consistent part of our agenda
Yeah.
for the next year throughout this process, and that you know, we may want to take a look at, you know, that list that they had of things and you know, try to operate within the time frame of enunciating our own goals, as an example.
Yeah.
Okay, I know that we spent time in the past talking about how we feel about certain things, but it's probably a good time for us to go back around again and solicit people's opinions and try to see where we have some consensus and where we may even have some differences of opinion about how we're thinking about things.
Yes. Sorry, this might be slightly off center from that point, but you said you supplied a lot of data. Has we seen that? So the data that I sent her was the past, for their group. The past 3 years, like all of our programming, the amount of people who participated in them, like the age breakdown of everything. I mean, I can send that stuff to you guys. But if I went back, I stopped. I didn't go at 24, 23, 22, because 21 started getting skewed with
The COVID.
COVID.
Yeah.
So I basically gave her like, hey, these are all the youth programming numbers, adult programming, senior center numbers for all those years. And then also gave them the events 22, 23, 24 and number, like attendance numbers for those. And then the other thing off the top of my head that I gave them was our budgets, both our revenues and expenses, 22, 23, 24, as well as this current year.
But do we, because I would think if I was saying this, but like if I was the one that had to be sitting there around the table with everybody, I'd love to have the ammunition and the knowledge and like, and maybe it's helpful for the group if we know those, or at least some of the numbers. I don't know how much we're allowed to see.
Yeah, I mean, all the budgets are public. That would be the
budgets would be,
yeah, I mean, I can send that to you and I can. The
usage is quite helpful as well, because it makes it
yeah,
say, well,
I mean, the
actually,
programs I could give, like, it might be more beneficial if I give you the general, like I gave them literally like every single
They
person.
dump, yeah.
Where I can like tighten it up and be like, hey, in 2023, it was this many programs, this many people, this many adults, youth, etc. Where them, I just give them massive spreadsheets and it's kind of up to them to like sort through it.
The other part.
It would be amazing. Just, I mean, I don't know if anybody else thinks that. I don't want to give you any work.
No,
This is
I
the
mean,
thing,
it's easy. I've already
you know.
done it for them.
Oh, because I just think, I mean, I don't know if anybody else thinks that, but
Yeah.
like we each bring our opinions to the table as members of the public, but knowing what the facts are behind what's that way, how you're making decisions makes an argument in a room a lot easier when you've got the data in your head to back up and what you want to do. And I can guarantee you other committees will come with that data, with other data.
I agree. I would, the other data point, I don't know if you have this proportion of DPW's budget that is recreation.
Yeah, I have that.
That'll be helpful.
Because that's a big variable too.
What do you think, Mike?
Well, I think that's all good, but if we wanted to real quickly re-summarize where there's going to be some tension, it's going to be, you know, conserve or not to conserve, what to conserve or not to conserve, you know, continued use of open space funds for continued acquisition of open space, whether we need more or not. You know, I think that the other group, although they have some level of interest in how our parks, you know, what our programming is and how they're managed, I think they're really focused on their open spaces and on the ideologically, they're really into conservation, permanent conservation. Whereas on our side, I think we think a little bit differently about, you know, what should be conserved, how much should be conserved, the use of financial resources. I mean, the long property in the last couple of weeks, I don't know if anybody follows that, but they hit a little bump in the road that you know, had to do with the state entity who was gonna provide them with some money. They basically said 16 houses is too few here, and we wanna make sure that some other part of this land can be used for housing, potentially for more housing down the road. And I know that the property owner is not happy about that. I know that there were people on the Housing and Conservation Board who questioned in their internal meeting why they should be spending money conserving property in the middle of South Burlington. That's never gonna be developed anyway because of the state wetland rules and regulations. You know, yet our city council was determined to promote deal making that would have had that money spent. So that's the kind of, you know, conversation that ultimately may occur between our two groups.
Well,
Makes
isn't that,
sense.
isn't that
Makes
a
sense.
reason to keep us separate? I mean, that's what I don't understand.
To a certain point in
to a
time,
certain
yes,
point,
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I just hope that at some point we can actually combine, connect, you know, because if it's always separate, then.
I mean, I would like, part of it in doing it two separate things too. I mean, there are the connections and the community engagement and the public like outreach processes, like all one thing. I mean, through even just what I've learned in the last year, if you do this combined, the rec is gonna get steamrolled. I mean, you guys are toast.
That's because of the disposition of the
Yeah,
council.
no, yeah, I'm aware of that, but like,
Yeah.
that was part of it is like, hey, we're doing two separate things and we're doing the rec. Like, it's gonna come out first. So there will be joint components, but the whole like, it was two specific separates, otherwise it's gonna get overrun.
So the
What
open
makes
space.
you say, what, so I understand I know I hear all the news and I know that some council members have got their own best interest in certain areas. But what makes you say that we're toast and we'll get steamrolled?
Well, just, I mean, to Brett's like point earlier, like the voices are way, way, way louder on the conservation open space than people who care about parks. I mean, they're constantly talking to city council. They're constantly in front of city council.
That's why the surveys are so crucial, because if we have to have people in our community talking about what they want. And if we don't, then yes,
I mean,
everything's
yeah,
gonna
I
be
mean,
steamrolled.
like as an example, like, I mean, maybe steamroll is not like the best,
No, I like
but like Hubbard,
Yes.
I mean, that's case in point, like
Absolutely.
the whole process with Drew originally.
Yeah.
Was to make that usable, and now we're talking about conserving it completely.
That's the part.
So that you can't really use it.
Not even
Or
the bike
like-
path?
Well, yeah, the bike path is, yeah, but that was part of like the compromise was, hey, if we do this bike path,
Yeah, at
it's
least,
gonna be conserved.
right.
Which is a fraction of what that original plan
Yeah.
said.
Yeah, I mean, not even, not even close.
But the part that's, I think, fascinating, and this is some of it, like, this is a political process, and council the makeup of council is going to change over time. We don't know what it's gonna be. Will they be sustained being pro-conservation for a while, or, but the, like, Underwood Hubbard is a great case in point. A decade ago, here's this plan that I'm sure had the approval of council, and, you know, I think there were some members of council, they're like, well, we didn't have any public engagement without thinking of taking that plan into account. So,
You've got, there's a great opportunity though, there's a great opportunity within the data itself as well. Of how people use the parks, and it's clear,
Yeah.
it's clearly obvious. If that's, there's part of me, and I don't know how that works, but there's part of me that's like, it's my marketing brain going off, but like, there's like a PR message. It's like a PR message in advance of like how the parks are used, who uses the parks, why they're so important for these recreational activities, and this is all the uses that's gone into it.
Accessibility.
Accessibility is clear,
determining
equity,
And how they're used.
and this is to change over
Yeah.
time. And guess what? There's a planning process coming up.
Then this plan
Here's the
also,
message.
like, over the years, if council was like leaning more on open space conservation than the parks, like doing these two separate will also give this group a ton of ammo.
Yeah.
As far as like, hey, we did this plan on the parks side, this is what it's saying we were missing, this is what it's saying we need, this is where the resources should be allocated. Like, that's tough for them to then turn a blind eye to it. I mean, this is like the best thing possible for this group to have their own plan.
I mean, I think, I agree with you about the data. And this. I do think we need to recognize that people, there are multiple truths that people hold, and there are multiple council members that think that climate change is the biggest existential threat to our community. And even if we say we have 10,000 people using the parks, they might not think that that's as critical as maintaining extra acreage of land. It's part of this is, I think we're getting into beliefs in addition to facts. and data.
But
I mean, that's always gonna be the case.
I mean, also to like Cindy's point, I think some people also often think like recreation and parks is just the program
Events program.
side of things, where you have to get the people who are just going there on a
Pass.
right, you have to be able to get everyone engaged in this, because there's a lot more people on that side of it than even are participating in our stuff.
Parks and recreation areas are a method of conservation.
Yeah.
In fact, they're the primary method of conservation because they also allow for public use. But I agree that data would be very important because the arguments that are going to be made are going to depend on the statistics and what they show, and also what will be more difficult for Carolyn is what they could show if there were a more cogent plan and there were also proposals for expanding the facilities that it could. So.
It would definitely be helpful if whatever's available to have it in the public domain. Whatever's available, whatever's possible to put in the public domain, for it to be in the public domain. So that ideology is always going to be ideology. There's always going to be people with vested interest. That's why they become councillors, because you've got an idea of what you want to do in your vision. There's always going to be that in any leadership position. It's just making sure that it's checked sometimes by the reality of what the data says or what the people want at the same time. I think if there's any way for that data to be more publicly available so that more people understand why they need to be engaged in this process, that's going to be that's gonna be the most important bit.
There's one other thing, and it's kind of like, not necessarily in the weeds, okay, but our overlook. We've got an overlook now, and then we've got Hubbard. And there's no question that Hubbard provides a more scenic overlook than does our present overlook on the other side of Spear Street. So if the overlook were to switch over, and I personally promoted this idea to people when I've talked to it for several years. And like when Tom Chittenden was on the committee, he says, no way they're ever gonna think about that. But there are more and more people that talk about it because it's obvious what you got. And so the folks who don't wanna see Hubbard used will definitely resist the idea of the overlook being relocated onto the other side of the road, even though it's a much better overlook. But Adam scheduled a couple of activities there in the past year and had good turnout. I don't know, activities once or twice.
Overlook or Hubbard?
Hubbard.
Yeah.
Hubbard. And the way to insidiously kind of make that part get used more and more and more
This is the data though.
is to schedule more programs.
This is the data, I know it sounds like, oh god, it's trivial, like some of the data gets a little, you're like, okay, why are you gonna use it? But the data is helpful in those
No,
scenarios, because you can tell stories.
Data's
You can
critical.
you can tell stories
Yeah.
in different ways. And and in theory, the consultant's supposed to be agnostic. So you feed the data to them, but then for us as committee members or whatever representatives of the committee, if we're armed with that data and understand it clearly, then we'll have a much better argument when somebody says, I really want to look after that tree because it's a place for peace and tranquility. We can say, well, that tree's really nice, but
We have a lot of.
look at all these people that are trying to use the park for this. Here's the data.
Yeah, well,
Point.
Look at how many people came for Park Hop Brews at Hubbard
Yeah,
Park.
yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Let's
Hey,
make
man.
more events there and
Yeah,
relocate
Then
the
it's-
overlook.
that's exactly. Then it's
So
less
like,
like
how can we tell more stories, captivating stories to then combat or tell a different story outside of the open space narrative? Does that make sense?
Well, it would be
Like,
good
is it like a, I think to your point is like, is it like a branding thing? Does that make sense? Like, I don't know where I'm trying to go.
I mean, Hubbard's gonna be passive recreation fundamentally, one way or another, but there
Yeah.
was a plan for a building there at one
Yeah.
point in time that would have, hosted small groups and what have you, and that's not gonna happen anytime in the near future. It's too big a price tag, but it's to have an outcome of this process be that there's a conservation easement that says you can't have a building there to host activities.
Yeah.
That would be a bad outcome.
Yeah,
We've got to preserve that future use for the people in our community down the road, because that may be something that they want, so.
I mean, one other thing too in this, which would be kind of nice, especially for Hubbard or Underwood Hubbard, is like on an easement, when they say you can still do some passive recreation on that. Like what that means to me compared to what that means to the NRCC is two totally different things. Which would be nice to have.
Definition.
Maybe, I don't know if it would like put me in a box or not.
They finally adopted the,
But like to NRCC, a conservation easement and passive means like trail walking,
no parking.
bird watching.
Yeah.
Where to me, like passive, you can do fitness classes, you can do events that are like set up, take down.
You can invite the astronomers there to take a
Yeah,
look at.
yeah. Where, I mean, you can do passive
Kites,
recreation, that's a
kite
group of
flying.
people. Where I think a lot of times NRCC or these conservation easements view passive as like, you're going individually and you're just on your own.
Yeah, that's good.
because that could be a challenge coming up with Hubbard. How this conservation easement goes.
This is getting into the NRCC stuff. My big question is, how much open space is enough? And then,
Yeah.
because we have finite boundaries, we have private land, how much, what's the point that's enough? And then what proportion? I'm not anti-conservation easement on everything, but like, we have to be smart about if the city's spending resources, if you're putting conservation easements on them, then it really.
Now, even economic
boxes.
development and housing, there's tangencies. And of course, transportation, Lori's consistently promoted the idea of transportation being there, but both housing and economic development there's tangencies in the parks because they're assets. And how are they gonna be used? And housing, proximity to parks, stuff like that.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say, I have an idea. I don't know if this is a proposal or an idea, I'm still surfacing whether I say those words or I don't. We came up with a list of things that we thought was important to us a couple of weeks ago, last month. We have the list of what we think is important. You have the data. Is there a way that we can tie those two things together that would allow us to tell a better story on those important areas so that it's clearer?
When you're referring to that list, are you referring to the list that ultimately you memorialized in a memo? Because that was quite some time ago, or is this something more recent? Is this our plan?
Last month's plan, yeah.
Okay, a more recent plan, okay.
Yeah, like, cause those are like our core
Mhm. Yep.
goals, values.
They're kind of general.
They're very general, but I don't know if any of those generalities can be said through some of the data that you have for us to feel like, okay, there's justification to those arguments and we're able to clarify the reasoning but behind it. So that when we do go into any of these other conversations, we're all clear that actually the data said this, we're sure about it. Because that's what most of the other committees do. It's what actually the bike-ped did. Data coming out their eyeballs
Sure,
when they
yeah.
when they have the conversations. We literally like fumbling around the dark with our own opinions and Hubbard Park's annoying us, and we're it doesn't all fit together in a coherent plan. And I don't know. I mean, could we do that next time? Maybe for those. If that's a good idea, if the committee thinks it's a good idea, like marrying the two things together so that we know that our goals fits the data that
Yeah, if we could
data
have
story
both
that
of
we want
those,
to tell.
yeah, if we could have both of those things sent to all of us, we could all then formulate before we get here. I think that is a good idea. I like that idea.
Well, differentiating, I don't know whether how you've done this already, but we've got passive programs that might be categorized as passive. And then you've got active, like your sports teams and stuff like that. It might be interesting to just take a look at our current programming and determine, how many of these things could be categorized as passive versus active. And, they all need a place still to be hosted and, where you're gonna go for them. Because the Veterans Memorial is so crowded, we're gonna start using Underwood / Hubbard more for our passive recreation.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're also, I think,
Pushing your ideology.
yeah. But I think some of that too, like Will was talking about it, I guess a couple points here. Like that info, we always talk about an indoor rec facility, which I'm gonna keep talking about it, but like, we talk about it like with no statistics background of like, hey, this is what we're missing out on, this is when we're in the schools, this is how challenging the schools are. Like, I know that info. It doesn't get,
But there's no
it
hard data.
doesn't, like, no, the public isn't like talking about that, and on the master plan, like the indoor rec would be nice, cause people aren't going to city council saying we need an indoor rec.
No,
So, like, no one talks about it, they're talking more about a city green
yeah,
than if we're spending money.
I-
it-
Can I just
you-
jump on?
you're
I
not
think-
gonna say anymore, but-
yeah, I mean, obviously cost is a huge factor, but I mean, my core belief is like, give it 10 years, 15 years, I'll be around. I'm ready for it, but I think the most disheartening thing where it reinvigorated me this past summer was, I won't name the counselor, but just spoke to him and I was like, really would love an indoor rec facility playing soccer down at Shelburne. And I was like, it would be great for, elderly to utilize the facility with a track. It's like, well, why do we need an indoor rec facility when they have the university mall to go walking? And I'm like, that is just not the correct vision to have whatsoever. But that's just kind of one side tangent, but I think that is a huge pitch that I think people can get behind. It's something physical, it's something tangible. And I think using the data, but saying, hey, this, we're doing this at the U Mall, all these events, all these
Yeah.
programming. How do we use the data to then,
Well,
convey that to our greater population to support that mission to complete
been
something?
using the data and then also. Maya, I mean. Sure, we're using the UMall, we're using all the schools.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys are the rec committee. Good luck knowing where we are on a given day.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes we're
Well,
in
you
the
do a
school,
great
sometimes
job
we're in the
by-
school,
Exactly.
sometimes we're in the mall, sometimes we're in the senior center.
You do a great job giving us details.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
yeah.
like, no one knows where we are.
No.
And then that makes it harder for people to
There's no
figure out
home.
what event we're doing. So
We are
we
right.
have basically capped out of the schools too at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we gotta go. But I mean, the other option too is, like, when we look through that data and you show us something, I want to tell like, okay, what's the situation? And we look at our goals and the facts of where we want to be and the objectives of what we really want to achieve. If there are gaps in it, well, at least by looking at the two things side by side, you can look at the gaps in it and say, all right, indoor rec facility, you're right, you're doing it all over the shop because that's the only place we can do it. But also, how can we actively ask people in the community before all this gets rolled out, that do they actually want an indoor rec facility? How can we get that out there to ask that question, to reinvigorate the community, to get them wanting it again, to not feel like it's a defeatist, people are already given up on the idea as a concept. At least that would give us the impetus to be like, okay, we've got all this, but we haven't got this. Shall we just create something that we can put out there to ask that question, or somehow shoehorn it into the questions that they put out for the rest of the surveys?
Agree with all these things. The part that I keep puzzling over is having the goals and the aspirations for the kids. So there's a part where we all believe in the data point that everybody talks about. Oh, we need a park within a quarter mile. Like it said, that was in the plan. Where'd that come from? We like. And
I think it was an NRPA, honestly.
But I'm not saying that's a bad, but like, that's a data, that's something that people have watched, something, what aspirationally do, if we have very robust parks and
It's not-
recreation.
Was it a
community-
quarter
it's
mile?
not-
Like
it's-
seven.
it's
about to lose his mind.
Well, yeah, but look at parking a quarter mile,
Indoor
park
facility.
right down
Well,
there
an
and
indoor
talk about
facility
city
is
green,
is a
like, and
thing.
a school right behind us, like.
How much is the city green gonna cost us?
At least 2 million to acquire the property, more like 4, probably.
Okay. So
But,
it is, and how
yeah, I
much
mean,
would
some
an
of these-
indoor?
Some of these numbers that we're
Center
talking about.
costs.
Well, it was gonna cost $20 million, 3-4 years ago, so
Now it's gonna
it's
cost
gonna cost
60.
more like.
At one point, the city bought or got the land for the bike paths, like that worked, like that. There's a lot of pieces that are in place here in our community, and we'd say like, as our community values, we would like to be able to have active and passive recreation opportunities for all of our citizens. And in that, this looks like this, and this is where the data fits in and somehow I like, and a facility is would be a critical component of that. Like right now, like trying to argue the point of
we're just kind of backing in, it would be really useful to do that, so to get people to be like, yeah, this is cool, we should do this. But
Okay, a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Good.